also come here, Anthony Brindisi.
Well, good evening, everybody. Great to be here tonight. I want to thank Sarah. Sarah's been a dynamo putting these events on, and I want to thank you for bringing all of us together. When I always It's great to see so many Democrats and like-minded people together on this beautiful night. It's always been very hard to get folks to come out for political causes, but you've managed to excite people and bring out our folks, and it's great for all of you to be here. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about why we're here tonight, and I'll talk a little bit about this little congressional race that's happening next year that you may have heard about. First, I'll talk a little bit about the congressional race. You know, we have really gone full steam ahead since the launch a few weeks ago. Many of you were there at the kickoff, and you know, someone said to me we had a great cross-section of people there. We had union support, we had grassroots support, we really had community members, veterans, young, old, you name it. Everyone came out, and it was so humbling for me to see that many people show up for my announcement. I don't get emotional too much, but walking up to that microphone really was an emotional experience for me to see so many people out there. And you're out there because you're concerned. We're all concerned about what is happening not only in this congressional district, but we're concerned about what's happening in our country in general. And many of you, like myself, woke up after the election, or maybe if you stayed up late that night, you saw this election, which you thought was going to go one way, go a completely different direction. And then you saw some of the announcements of these new cabinet appointments that the new president was making, and you're thinking to yourself, we're really letting the fox guard the hen house. And whether it's with public education, or whether it's with health care, or it's the environment, we're really concerned about some of these announcements that are being made. And then we come into the new year, and we're in January, and you see the immigration ban and how it's impacting a community like Utica and our proud refugee community who have come here for 30 years, escaping persecution and war and famine, coming to Utica to make this place their home, so much so that we've been nicknamed the town that loves refugees. And you see this ban go in place, and our identity as Americans really start to be challenged as a welcoming country. Really in just one fell swoop, that changes overnight. And then you see changes in rollbacks in some of our environmental protections and our clean water and our air, and you're seeing these tax cuts proposals that are really going to help more companies send jobs overseas, which is something the president campaigned about. And then the ultimate, the health care bill, that we were all fearful of coming, and we saw it come, and we never thought it would be quite as mean, but as the president said, it's a mean bill, and it really, really is when you dive in deep and start to look at the details. You know, millions of Americans losing their health insurance, pre-existing conditions. You guys know because you're following this day in and day out. You see the Russia investigation. It's almost hard to believe when you wake up in the morning some of the things that you're seeing on TV. It's like a movie or the Twilight Zone or some combination thereof. It's really scary. But I have to say, despite some of the things that are happening in this area and that are happening in our country, people are awake and they are upset and they want to make change. And that's why we are seeing so many people come together since the Women's March in D.C. that, by the way, I think was bigger than the inauguration. I think we can safely say that. Since that Women's March, the fire has been ignited in so many people who traditionally haven't been involved in politics. And that really kind of led me to do what I wanted to do. You know, I thought long and hard about running for Congress back in 2015 and 2016 when Richard Hanna retired, and decided at that time that it just wasn't the right time for me. Well, I can tell you that this is the time, and this is the time, and this is why you're here. This is why I'm doing it this time, because I can't sit back and let what's happening in Washington and stay on the sidelines without doing something about it. And that's why we're all here. We have a lot of work to do. know this, I know this. It's going to be an off-year election in 2018. Democrats don't traditionally come out in the large numbers that they do in presidential years. There's challenges. Financially, we are going up against a very well-funded, I am going up against a very well-funded opponent who sits on a very powerful committee that has the ability to raise a lot of money. But what we have on our side is energy. We have energy, and we have people who are willing to pound the pavement, to volunteer, and to really bring together the grassroots effort that is going to win back this congressional district. And that's what we have to capitalize on. We have a long time to go. And I know many of you want to get right involved right now, and you're asking me about signs and what you can do. And I'm telling you that I don't want to give you a sign now because I'll have to replace it 6 times between now and the election. And signs are very expensive. But the signs will be coming next year. We have a lot to do in the meantime. And what we can do is what we're here for tonight. Now, I talked about this at Democratic meetings, and I've talked about this in public at town halls and different forums. We have to start building back our bench. The Republicans were very smart years ago in recognizing that in order for them to win back the House, win the Senate, ultimately take back the presidency, they have to start local, okay? And they have to start building their bench. Because when they build their bench, they have more candidates to draw from who ultimately can run for state offices, and it's the states where the district lines are drawn for Congress across the country. And they recognize that. They got governors elected, they got state representatives elected, and they gerrymandered districts from Maine to California in favor of their side. They did that. We didn't recognize it at the time. We know it now, and we can act now to make a difference. And we have great local candidates that are running this year for local office who are on the ballot in November. Now, many of you may be saying, well, I don't live in Boonville, or I don't live in Whitestown, or I don't live in Herkimer County or Madison County. So I don't think it would be good for me to volunteer for another candidate who doesn't represent me. Well, let me tell you this. We need these folks in office because we need to start winning back our county legislative seats, our city council seats, our town council seats, our school board seats, so we can start building a bench of people that can run for the state assembly and the state senate and the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate and all those offices that lead up to the presidency. We need that bench. So please volunteer for these folks. They are out there working hard. It is not easy to run for office. It really does take a person who's willing to sacrifice their own time, their own money, and put the needs of their area ahead of their own needs. It's hard. You're under scrutiny all the time. You never make everybody happy no matter what you do. You have social media pressures that are always going to criticize whatever you do. But if we don't have good people that can step up and do these kinds of things, then we can't elect good people to office. And what is better than volunteering for a local candidate than to give you the kind of training you need next year when you volunteer for the Brindisi for Congress. You will learn firsthand how to knock on doors, how to stuff envelopes, how to make phone calls, everything and anything. I can't tell you, there are so many ways to get engaged. It's not just writing a big check to a candidate. Some people like to stuff envelopes. Some people like to make calls. Some people like to knock on doors. Some people like to do research and writing. There are so many talents that need to be harnessed for a campaign. And I know that if we look around this group, we can meet every one of those needs. And we can start with our local candidates. We can build them up and hopefully win back those seats. And then next year, it is all hands on deck The only way the Democrats are going to be able to stop some of the agenda that's happening at the national level is if they win the House of Representatives. They will not win the House of Representatives unless they win the 22nd Congressional District. We need seats like this in order to take back the House. And I know with all of you, we can make that happen. So I want to say thank you for staying engaged. Thank you for being here and offering your assistance to these local candidates. You know, we saw this week, with just my own opponent, some of the attacks that have already started against me. And you can expect that to continue throughout 2018. But as our wonderful former First Lady said, when they go low, we go high. And that's what this campaign is going to be all about. We are going to talk about issues because when people wake up in the morning, they're not worried about who my father was or who her father was. They're worried about their job. They're worried about their health care. They're worried about their Social Security. They're worried about their Medicare. They're worried about the environment. And the list goes on and on and on. And that is what this campaign, my campaign, is going to talk about. And it's not if we win, it's when I win, we will deliver the House of Representatives. Thank you all very much. Please sign up to help your local candidates. They need your support this year. I need your support next year. Thank you all very much, and thank you, Sarah.